To be a man and to be a successful man, it's to be able to look your challenges in the eyes and say, it might take a while, but I'll get over this. I'll be ready for the next one.
So Tanner, what does it actually feel like to wipe out on a 100-foot wave?
This feeling of...
What's up, everyone? My name is Tanner Waite, also known as Beach Cowboy across the internet. I am a surfer, a health coach, own a brand called Residual Stoke.
A Buddhist teacher said to be fully alive, fully human, and completely awake is to be continually thrown out of the nest.
I mean, to find the truest form of yourself, you gotta go out on your own. Push everything aside. All of your concerns about what other people might think or feel about you, say behind your back. We're all already billionaires, and we're handed so many things that are worth millions and millions of dollars. The beauty of sunsets, the fact that we live in the greatest time in human history where we're even allowed to think and feel in the way that we do.
The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. What do you think quiet desperation looks like in modern men?
Changing yourself so that you're seen in better light from other people before you change yourself to see what you're actually capable of.
Ooh, external validation.
And I remember I parked my car and I took this photo. Still have it. It's going to probably be my wallpaper for the rest of my life. And I remember looking out, and it was the first time in my life where I had a moment of reflection that I can remember, where it was like, dude, I don't want to live like this. Like, look at what I'm witnessing right now.
How'd you grapple with that loneliness? I've struggled with that for the last decade.
I think I just wrote about it. I went through incredible financial turmoil. I was married and divorced. I've watched my friends almost die surfing big waves. Like one of my parents fall to alcoholism. I've seen enough to where it's like all of that stuff's pretty much fixable. Most of the stuff that we're worried about is just kind of like dust in the dustpan. Like you just kind of you can sweep it up, learn from it. And
you think high school Tanner, if you were to tell him that, would he have been able to even understand what you're saying?
Not even close.
If you could leave a few words for your 80-year-old self, what would you say?
I hope you can look back and laugh and go, damn, I'm glad I got to feel that. I'm so glad I made those mistakes.
I probably ran through 50 different ways to start this episode.
Sick.
There's so many different approaches we could take.
Yeah.
But I kept coming back to this one question that I genuinely have been curious about in general, not just for you, but you're the first person I can actually ask this to.
Yeah.
So Tanner, what does it actually feel like to wipe out on a 100-foot wave?
Well, I don't know. I've never been there. I haven't ridden that big of a wave.
What's the biggest you've ridden?
But, I don't know. Big enough to take your life if you fall the wrong way, I think. The most intimidating thing with surfing waves of that size and waves that are that big and something that could take your life and could drown you isn't actually falling on the wave that you're catching. A majority of the time, and it's a funny lesson with life within that, the last thing that you want to have happen is get caught inside by one of those huge waves. Because more often than not, it's a lot bigger than most of the other waves that are coming in on that any given day.
For anyone listening who doesn't surf, what does that mean to get caught inside?
To get caught inside is where you are sitting out in a lineup of waves with other surfers, and a wave that is significantly bigger than the rest that has been coming in, or significantly bigger than the rest of the waves that have been coming in, breaks further out. So instead of being outside of the waves in a place where you might be able to catch them, the wave breaks further out, lands on your head. It's just like all your limbs are getting ripped off, feels like the most violent car crash, like you're in a washing machine. I mean, there's so many different, ways that you could describe that feeling, but it's a very humbling and fascinating experience and something that you can't recreate. And what makes it so beautiful in so many different ways is how you can't really describe it. It really is. There's no way that you can explain what it feels like to be underwater for an undetermined amount of time, spinning in directions that you have no control over and kind of just hoping for the best and hanging on.
Yeah.
But it's so cool at the same time because you really nail down this feeling of how you control yourself under pressure where you have no other option.
Yeah.
Actually, you can't take a breath. You can't take a step back. You can't stop the race, and step out of the race. You're in it. You put yourself there.
Mm-hmm.
You better find a way to get out and make it through.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, it's just the way that you do that is just kind of by relaxing and let it happen, I rode the biggest wave of my life about a month ago at Nazaré in Portugal. I paddled into it
paddled
And
it.
yeah, I've only ever paddled Nazaré.
Why?
Why?
Yeah, why not take a ski?
I don't think it's as cool, to be honest.
It's not as cool.
It's not as fun. It's for me, big wave surfing is the most spiritual connection that you could ever have, like with the ocean and with yourself, because it pushes you in so many different ways that you cannot replicate, and tests every skill that you might have, from your mental fortitude and how you can maintain your composure when you're wiping out or getting caught inside or paddling out, as well as your wave selection and knowledge, your skills on the wave, how you navigate lineups with lots of people, because now big wave surfing is getting so popular that you're having to navigate with places like Mavericks where there's 50, 60, 70 people out.
Yep.
And you're jockeying for position like you would on a 3-foot wave, but for a wave that can take your life. So it's just this crazy thing, but it makes it for me, it's all about you and the ocean and your experience and your relationship with it, and how you take care of her is how she takes care of you, to that same effect.
Yeah.
And, if she kind of like wants to take you with her at the end of the day on a session like that, like that's just what was meant to happen anyway.
Yeah.
And it's like, you wanted to find your limit and you found it.
Yeah.
I don't want that to happen, obviously, but I get fired up thinking about like the different levels and different places that I've been in my own mind, and how close I've been to death within that. And it just brings so much more life to like my everyday hustle,
Sure. So I found my limit surfing maybe about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit less. Waves were probably like 17 feet or so. And that was very, very different from like a 9-foot day, which is very, very different from a 2-3 foot day.
For sure.
In a lot of ways, like the just raw power, the noise, how where you need to be, obviously the intensity, the awareness. The difference between a 3-foot day, a 9-foot day, a 15-foot day. What's the difference between the 15 then and like a 40 or 50-foot day?
There's a really famous saying that goes around that I believe Buzzy Kerbach's coined. He's one of the OGs in like the big wave surfing space, and it's, you don't measure big waves in the size of them or in like the face height, but in increments of fear, because there's a lot of different ways. And for those of you that don't surf, there's different types of waves. There's very powerful big waves. There's very big and mushy waves that are much taller than the more powerful waves. And generally speaking, the more powerful ones are the ones that intimidate you the most.
Yeah.
So the tallest wave ever ridden might not be the most intimidating wave ever ridden by that same surfer, if that makes sense. So when it comes to kind of understanding the difference between like a bigger day, different sizes, it more or less comes down to how like square it is. So how thick and how far like the wave throws out when it hits whatever reef or beach break that it's seeing. Because I've surfed some pretty big days at many different big waves around the world, and bar none, a day half the size of what I surfed at Nazaré this year at Mavericks is far more intimidating because of the sheer volume and power behind that spot.
Sure.
They both command their different levels of respect in many different ways, and they're both equally as humbling and can certainly both take your life in the same way. But it's the increments of fear thing is there. So it's more the power associated with the waves than I would say that the face height.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit.
Yeah.
Think back to when you were in high school.
Yeah.
You grew up in Southern California.
Yeah.
Which town exactly?
Oceanside.
Okay, so you grew up in Oceanside. Walk me through like the things that would scare you and intimidate you the most that have nothing to do with surfing. Maybe socially, maybe at school.
Oh, dude, back then, everything. I didn't even surf at that point. I learned how to surf when I was young, but I never, ever did. It scared the hell out of me. Everything about it scared me. I picked it up kind of around 16. But I think, I was a shy, quiet nerd, like the epitome of a nerd. Basically, I had a bowl cut and wore glasses. It doesn't get much more nerdy than that.
It's kind of sick now, though.
Yeah, it's pretty sick, right? Like, it's got some aura or whatever it might be. But, on an everyday basis, like, dude, I didn't want to like talk to girls. I didn't want to, try to hang out with the cool kids. I just was kind of afraid of most things.
Yeah.
In the way that I didn't really want to take the risks. Like I was very fascinated by learning, and I was good at it. So, and at least good at school and academia. And, I was at that time, like in the garage with my dad. I grew up building and racing desert trucks. So I was, learning about some fabricating and how to build things. And it was kind of fueling my desire for like engineering, which is kind of the path I'm sure that we'll talk about later, that I ended up going down. And I was just afraid of pretty much everything. Like, I don't necessarily know why. I don't know if I've taken the time to sit down and really think of it in that way. But yeah, it was most things intimidated me. It was like if I did anything wrong, it was like the world is ending. And that stuck with me for a long time. Now that I think about it in that same way of like, dude, I was so afraid of messing up. So afraid of it. It didn't matter what it was. I could have gotten one question wrong on a test. I could have, not done something good enough working on the truck, and like screwed up, some expensive part for my dad or whatever, something like that. It was everything was, I was so afraid of screwing up, and it traumatized me to the point where I didn't take any risks outside of it. I think, at least.
Okay. We have a lot to cover there, but let's fast forward now again.
Yeah.
So then now you're in your late 20s, almost 30, and you've done the scariest things humans can do. When you're sitting down to do that exam now, or seeing a girl you want to go talk to, or working on a truck, does that fear have any place in you anymore now that you've seen some real shit?
Not really, man. To be honest, I've been through so much over the last few years, especially like mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. I went through incredible like financial turmoil. I was married and divorced. I've watched my friends almost die surfing big waves. I've seen my parents, like one of my parents fall to alcoholism. Like I've seen enough to where it's like all of that stuff's pretty much fixable. Like pretty much everything is fixable. Obviously you can cause like permanent damage to you or your friends, like bodily, whatever. But most of the stuff that we're worried about is just kind of like dust in the dustpan. Like you just kind of, you can sweep it up, learn from it. And
you think high school Tanner, if you were to tell him that, would he have been able to even understand what you're saying?
Not even close. Yeah. There's no comparison. It's funny even like bringing up that conversation because it just has no place because he wouldn't even have no idea.
Yeah.
If you told, 16-year-old me when I picked up a surfboard and kind of started going with my friends consistently, that at some point I would surf like the big three of like Jaws, Mavericks, and Nazaré, and flirt with drowning like for fun at a place like Nazaré just to see how far you could push it, it wouldn't even be. I wouldn't even listen to you.
What changed?
There's a lot that led me to find this path, and a big part of that was my relationship with anger, and I guess now that I think about how that ties back to my fear of messing up and failing. And there was a point in my life where I had made that conscious decision to say, hey, like, I don't ever want to be angry. That doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't make any sense, to live just in constant anger. Somebody cuts you off in traffic. You're just like, like, fuck that guy. Like, what a piece of shit. Who cares?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Somebody leaves you in your life, in a relationship, good. They weren't meant to be there anyway.
Yeah.
I
want to talk about the anger.
Yeah.
There was a guest who came on a couple months ago, Ben Forrest, and he shared a quote that I say it like every other day now, which is wild.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah. And what he said was, he's like, none of us realized it, but men, we grew up and our whole lives, we've only had 3 modes.
Okay.
There's anger.
Okay.
There's like, I'm angry, I'm horny, or I'm fine.
Yeah.
And it's like those 3, nothing in between. And that's our existence.
Yeah.
And now we live in a time in 2025, almost 2026, where it's like there's lots of emotions, and we need to learn how to understand them and talk about them and feel them and all this stuff. So let's start with the anger one, because like this comes up so much. And by the way, I heard that and I was like, he's so right. Like he's just right.
Yeah.
And so you brought up anger a few times when we chatted, and again now. When did you first let's start here. Like, when did you first feel that?
I noticed for a very long time that I was kind of always very, very critical of myself. I held myself to an incredibly high standard, straight A student. I tried to hold like almost a 4.0 like all through engineering school. I feared screwing up so much that anytime I did, I would catch myself just getting so mad. Like, dude, I can't believe you did that. Like, you're an idiot. You are a failure. You're never going to make it. You're full of shit. Whatever you're doing just isn't going to work. Like, you don't deserve it. You haven't earned it. Whatever it was.
I mean, admittedly, I'm 30 and I talk to myself like that sometimes too.
Yeah, we all do. Even still, like at some point I catch myself, What the catalyst for all of that initial growth was I was in school at UC Irvine, right down the street basically from here, studying mechanical engineering. I didn't like where I was. I was super pissed about just everything. I didn't have any tools to like process my emotions. So when something would go wrong and like my dad was like kind of frustrated in general growing up. So a lot of that kind of stemmed from, like what he was doing, kind of how he like composed himself, like driving or just like how he handled his own emotions kind of like translated down to me, which to that same effect has grown an insane amount himself over the last few years, which is incredible to see.
Yeah.
I would see the frustration all the time, and then I just kind of accepted that maybe that's how it's supposed to be, right? I feel like that's a standard thing. And then so to bring it back, so there was a point where I was just mad at everything. I didn't like where I was. I was living on my own for the first time ever. I didn't have any tools to process any emotions. I didn't like engineering. I was like, this sucks, dude. This isn't, the way that the teachers were giving exams and I'm in a class with like 300 people. I can't even talk to the professor. And it just didn't feel good. I was like, this is horrible, man. And I had a horrible outlook on life. I wasn't grateful. I just was not holding myself accountable for anything, right? Because you don't know, nobody's telling you like, hey, like, do you see where you're at? Like, it's kind of a shitty way to look at things. Like, you're kind of crushing it. I didn't necessarily have that. And without the tools to process that on my own, I was sitting outside of where I was supposed to be taking a midterm in the middle of campus. So UC Irvine set up in a big circle. And I was sitting somewhere in the middle of the park, staring at the building that I was supposed to go take a midterm at that I didn't study for because I was so consumed by my own frustration, anger, and confusion that I couldn't process anything. And all I felt was just rage and confusion and depression and all these different emotions that I had never really been able to process because I feel like I was never shown that there's other ways to do it up until then. And I had a full-on mental breakdown. Basically lost my mind for a few days. My dad, my uncle came up and like got me from school. I had a big meeting with the directors at the engineering program at school, was telling them what was going on, like with my own mental health and what I was struggling with. And they were like, hey, like, we get it. We appreciate you came and said something to us. Like, just let us know when you want to come back. And that was the first time where I was like, oh, whoa, this is what happens when you speak up, when you say something, okay, granted, like, probably shouldn't have to come all the way down to this, but whoa, like, this is what happens when you have like this open space to talk about what's going on in your life.
Like, it went well, and you weren't alone.
And it went well, and I was like, whoa, like, this is a new feeling.
Yeah.
And that was the catalyst, I think, for me to go, oh, hey, like, maybe I don't need to live like this. Everyone's telling me like, do what you love and stick with it and you'll find a way to make it work. But I didn't know what that meant. Like, my mom is a teacher and my mom's a painter. They're very traditional. They kind of go about their business. My dad just works for himself. My mom is part of the, education system. So there wasn't really that like, go find your own way bug, if that makes sense. It's like, what, just go do your school and, when you finish, like, you'll figure it out. And I never really understood that. But I remember we went to the hospital and I checked in the emergency room for a mental breakdown, which is crazy to think about and say.
Can you describe the mental breakdown as vivid as you can possibly remember?
It's funny. I feel like I muted most of it in my own in my own processing. But if you can envision the lowest point that you've been in your young adult life, where it feels like everything is crashing down around you, it feels like buildings are burning. You're sitting on this park bench, and it feels like everything should be on fire. and everything's lighting up around you, and you're lost and confused, and you're like, don't know why everything's on fire. No, it's not on fire. Nobody else is catching on fire, but it's just you. And you feel this undeniable heat of and pressure that you put on yourself. But you don't know that you put it on yourself and that you could put the fire out. So you're just sitting in it and you're burning and burning and burning until you get to the point where you have to cry out for help from somebody else. But you can't call it strangers that are walking by because you don't know anything about them or who they are, and you don't trust them. So you just call who you know. But to be honest, I don't think I called anybody. I think my dad called me. I think he knew. Like, I think he felt it at that same time. I don't know if that paints like a vivid enough picture for what that might have felt like back then.
Yeah.
But it's like you're sitting in a life where everything is burning to the ground, but it ends up just being all in your head.
Yeah. So you leave school for a bit.
Yeah, I left school and basically, so ended up, had that mental breakdown, dropped out of school. And I remember this is where one of the most powerful tools that I've ever learned to use and leverage in my entire life came to be. Was I got back to my dad's house in Oceanside, and I just was like, I'm just going to go to the beach. I don't know why. I just feel like I need to go to the beach, and the sun was about to set. And I remember I parked my car and I took this photo. I still have it. It's going to probably be my wallpaper for the rest of my life, where I took this sunset picture, and I remember I vowed to myself, it was the first time where...
Honestly, gorgeous sunset.
Right?
Like, of course, It had to be the best sunset ever that day.
Exactly. And I remember looking out, and it was the first time in my life where I had a moment of reflection that I can remember, where it was like, dude, I don't want to live like this. This sounds like, look at what I'm witnessing right now. Why do I feel this way? What could that be? I just became curious in that moment of, I know there's got to be a better way to go about this. And in that moment, I made a vow to myself that I would do whatever I could to not miss a sunset every day for the rest of my life. It didn't matter what it was or where I was or what was happening. I would, at the bare minimum, make sure that I was outside and experiencing that. I would not be caught dead watching Love Island while the sun is setting. I can promise you that. And that has been single-handedly the most powerful mental health tool that I've ever had. And it costs $0. I have every single one of my clients that I work with do it. It's prescribed. Like, I'm like, you're doing this every day. Sunrise or sunset, whatever works with your schedule. Mm-hmm. You're going to go outside for 5-10 minutes, and I just want you to exist. That's it.
What do you think's going on in the brain when you're doing that?
I think you're just filtering out all the bullshit. You look out and you see that, especially here, like, we're blessed here in California. The sunsets are incredible. And you start to realize that most of this doesn't matter. What you're feeling, the girl you're worried about, the mental breakdown you just had, the fact that you dropped out of engineering school and you had almost a full ride, doesn't really matter. What matters is your experience. Nobody else is going to feel that for you. So why are you depriving yourself of it?
I keep seeing this little clip of Shia LaBeouf, of all people, on some podcast. And, he's had quite the life and career. But you may know this clip that's been going around. It's him being like, I think as a man, you need to just you actually need to fuck up your life a little bit. Like, you need to just have everything get completely fucked up so that you can then go from there.
Yeah.
And you laugh in agreement. Why?
Dude, I love it.
I love it too.
I love the challenge and the forced growth. Like, what I learned around that same time is that to be happy is fleeting. To be fulfilled, also largely fleeting. But you can find fulfillment in what you do by the constant pursuit of learning. So this constant idea of, I can never know enough. I can never experience enough. I can never feel enough. Like, I am an infant when it comes to experience on this planet. Mm-hmm. and accepting that as like, that's going to make things really hard, right? That's why everything is so challenging. But at the same time, it's what brings you so much life. Because think about when you were a kid, right? Take it back all the way. You're in second grade. You're learning about like the dinosaurs or something. Your eyes are like this. What? Like those things are walking around? Like that's crazy. Why doesn't that carry into your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s? Why can't you look at something new that you know nothing about and just go, whoa, that's fascinating. What's the best possible way to like look at all of these things so that it brings you this curiosity of like just the pursuit of knowledge?
Yeah.
It's so sick, you know, especially now. No excuse. You can go on ChatGPT and look up whatever you want and be like, you know everything about me. What are some things that I might be interested in? And you can just go down those rabbit holes for years.
Yeah.
And you can never get bored.
So tell me about your surfing come up story. You see this sunset. You've been in the water a few times, right? Like,
Yeah.
not
I think I
part
was
of your
like
life.
20, yeah.
Okay. So now I assume at this point you're like, now you're a beach guy.
Well, the funny thing is I hated surfing at that point.
Okay.
That was I had a very poor relationship with surfing at that point because for those of you that don't surf, within surfing and surf culture, there's a lot of localism that often gets confused with respect and what rules you need to follow and what politics there are in the water.
A lot of assholes.
A lot of not cool people.
Yeah.
And I was getting sucked into that, right?
So you're becoming one of those guys.
I was one of those guys. I was miserable to be around. Dude, you didn't want anything to do with me at that point in my life. Nobody did. And I don't blame them because I lived in this constant state of anger and frustration. And I would see what the other like core guys were doing and yelling at random people. And I'd be like, oh yeah, like fuck those guys, whatever, what a kook.
It's
like,
very ironic of like, you'd think the sport where you're the most blissful, graceful, peaceful, grateful.
Yeah, that's what it should be.
Breeds the most like anger, frustration. Like I kind of get it. Like sometimes, yeah, I'm so fucking frustrated. In the water sometimes.
For sure.
It's just paradoxical. It's just the best word I can think of.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I fully got sucked into that. And again, at that same point when I was sitting there watching the sunset, I remember thinking like, all right, well, I feel like surfing shouldn't be, because surfing was a massive part of my life. It was kind of the only thing that I would say was keeping me together, even though it was also tearing me apart because I was just so angry all the time surfing. But I was like, it doesn't make sense that this thing makes me so angry, but I still come back to it every day. Think about that. You got people who are surfing for 30 years. They're just, you talk to them, you're like, dude, have you ever laughed when you're in the water? You know?
Yeah, what? Why? Just why? Like, what the hell's going on there?
It's not serious, You're just like a man in a skin-tight suit dancing around on a wave. Like, it's not that tough, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just, I remember like thinking, I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I probably should fix that with surfing. I don't know why, because I also wanted to be really good at surfing. That was always a thing with me. I was very competitive in that. Surfing kicks your ass, dude. Like, it takes years to get proficient at surfing. So much obsession and trying and just getting just absolutely pounded by the waves. And, that never ends, actually. The further you go, like you just kind of keep pushing yourself. You end up in the same place where you're just getting absolutely annihilated by surf. And I saved up. I went back to working at the surf shop at Surf Ride in Oceanside. I'd worked there for a long time. Went back, worked there the whole summer. Saved up $2,000. Bought a plane ticket to Bali. And then I just went and surfed for 6 weeks straight. I was living on, I think like $15 a day was my budget. So I was like scooter, stay and food, 15 or $20 a day. And
how old are you?
This was in 2017. So I was 21, 22.
Okay.
And because I had a little bit of a delayed college experience because I went to community college in Maricosta, so that took longer because engineering is so intense. And then when I went to UCI and then I dropped out, that took even longer. So it just, everything was a little bit more stretched out. And I got there, and dude, all I did for 6 weeks was surf 8 hours a day. Like, I don't drink, I don't party, anything that was still true back then. So all I did was I would wake up, surf until my stomach hurt, eat, surf until the sunset, eat, and then go to sleep for 6 weeks straight. My brother came out for I think like 2 weeks of that, and we just literally just kept doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got to heal my relationship with surfing, and whatever was happening at that point, like Bali wasn't as nearly crowded as it is now. And
where in Bali were you?
I was just in Uluwatu.
Yeah,
surfing. I mean, it's like I'm goofy. That left is insane. So I was just going crazy all day. High tide, low tide, big swell, small tide, didn't matter. I was like, this is the best place ever. And I didn't get sick. It's one of those times in my life where I look back, I'm all, dude, like God was watching over me on that one for sure. And there's a few pivotal points in my life where I've really felt that.
Yeah.
And especially in hindsight, I can see it in that, oh, whoa, like that was supposed to be a big part of my life,
I'll throw a quote out there. I don't even need to read this one because this one's like tattooed in my mind. Yvon Chouinard, founder of Patagonia. I heard it in the documentary 180 Degrees South.
Okay.
I've seen that. If you haven't seen it, watch
I'm going to watch it. I think somebody else recommended that recently.
Doc.
Yeah. Okay.
The quote is, the best adventures answer questions in the end that at the beginning you never thought to ask.
Yeah. So
let's talk about your Bali experience. You leave California angry, like feeling some sort of heavy emotion around surfing. I assume not sure how to articulate it or something.
Yeah, no, I had no way to articulate it, yeah.
I imagine you didn't have a list of questions you wanted to go answer about life and existence and manhood and surfing and etc. But what questions were answered for you that you never thought to even ask while you were there?
Dude, that it should just be fun and beautiful no matter what you're going through, what you're experiencing, where you're at, how you feel. Life, to some effect, at some point during the day or whatever you might experience, like should be fun and beautiful. I think that's what I first saw in that first sunset. And dude, that's like as simple as it gets. I think.
Like that you use the word should for that. You think we all deserve that?
I think you got to earn it.
You got to earn it. So it's a privilege, not a right.
I don't think anyone should be denied that feeling and experience, but in order to really value it, you do need to earn it, right? You do need to feel those lows in order to like really, really understand the highs. So maybe in the sense that like, yeah, everyone should be able to feel and see the beauty. But I think considering where I've come from and what I used to think I saw in beauty is completely different than what I see now and how it exists. So maybe it is a right, but it can represent so many different things for so many different people.
Yeah. It's a fascinating one.
Yeah, that's a very like powerful question.
Yeah.
Of like, is it right? It's like, I do think you should earn it, because how are you going to appreciate it? It's like if you could hand somebody with $1 billion like $1 million and they're like, whatever. Doesn't matter,
Yeah.
It's just swept under the rug, but someone else that's, and insanely, it's for most people, it's like a crazy amount. But I think a lot of times what happens is we're all already billionaires and we're handed so many things that are worth millions and millions of dollars in the sense of like the beauty of what it's like to live and feel sunsets, the fact that we live in the greatest time in human history where we're even allowed to think and feel in the way that we do. And most of that is just kind of forgotten,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, and you don't even notice it. It's like, it's funny for me. It's like sometimes, I come up to the Venice area a lot, and it's like you go into somewhere like Erewhon. It's like, dude, it seems like everyone's kind of bummed in there, Like it's rare that you see somebody who's like chipper and like stoked, Today I saw a couple guys who were like, that worked there, and they were just psyched about who knows what. I'm all, that's cool. Like, I love to see that.
Yeah.
But it's like, I like look around these people, everybody's so bummed. And you can feel it. Like, you feel the energy in the air. And I'm all, dude, that sucks.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be like that.
I love that you prescribe watching sunsets to your clients.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
I learned this thing years ago that I found to be really fascinating, which is the realization that sunrises and sunsets are actually like an upper class privilege. I was like, what does that mean? And then what I learned was, if you are in a low class or like lower middle class, you typically live in an urban center in a city.
Okay.
Where there's a lot of buildings around.
Oh.
And so looking out your window when you're walking around the streets, wherever you are, you can't see the sunset really.
That's fair.
You can't actually get to this vantage point. Kind of like the classic analogy of like the house on the hill. Like, at the top of the hill, that's where, the best views. So I was like, oh, wow, that's wild. Like, can you imagine growing up in a scenario in a city where you actually never really like saw a proper sunset or sunrise? I wonder what that would do to your mental health, to your general like view of the world. So when you work with clients, has anyone ever genuinely been like where do I go watch the sunset?
No, because I think at that point I talk about the sunset. I think every day it's at this point, or I'll make a video on it. So most of them are already very familiar with that. But it is a fascinating question because I do believe that does exist.
Yeah.
I've had it in the past, and a lot of times the people that I end up working with are a little bit later in their adult life. They've gotten to travel a little bit. They're a little bit further along in their careers. They have a little bit of extra income, so it's kind of a different demographic. But every now and then, I'll get a younger kid, and I had one recently. He was 18, traveling on his own, like through whatever it was. And, there was a couple times where he'd be like, oh, this is happening. I was frustrated with this. And I would just kind of have the conversation of like you see where you're at right now, dude, right? Like this is like the things that I wish somebody was kind of there to just like whip me into shape of, just practicing gratitude. And I never really like phrased it like that, but it was always like, hey, like just go outside, sit at the beach for 30 minutes when the sun sets. Like, that's all I want to. He's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And now he does it every day. He's like, I get it,
Mm-hmm.
But he hadn't really ever thought about it in that way or seen it.
Yeah.
Because he did kind of come from that like middle America. Like, it's just not really a thing. I mean, like nothing can beat a sunset over the ocean. Like, we're very, very spoiled with where we're at. The fact that we can see that. But I mean, it's cool to see that growth like within them at least.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So back to Bali.
Yeah.
So you come back from Bali, back to California.
Mm-hmm.
Were you a changed man?
Yeah, very much so. In the way that I love surfing. I came back and I knew how much my parents had invested into me and my education, my childhood, the way I was raised, and pushed me in school. And I wanted to understand and respect that I didn't really know everything. And they kept telling me that as long as I got the degree, I could do whatever I wanted after, which is a good thing that they said, because I probably would have just said screw it and bailed anyway. But at that point, you don't really have much of a choice, right? I was still living at home. You kind of got to do what your parents say. And I remember I was like, okay, well, I'll go back and I'll do this. Like, I'll give it a shot. I kept saying, I was like, I'll give it a shot. And I went back and I just was like, maybe I can find a way to like enjoy this a little bit, at least a little bit, And it was a grind for sure. It owned me, Mechanical engineering is no joke with school and studying. And I lived in Oceanside at that point. I took the train up to UC Irvine. It's like hour and a half long train most of the time. Then you got to take a 30-minute bus back south to school. And then the bus is always late. The train breaks down. That was a proper like grind time in my life. But I kept going just with like, okay, well, I only need like 2 more years of this and then I can go and do whatever I want to do. Whatever that, I don't even know what that is, but if at least I have this, and God forbid I like, leave with the ability to get like a 6-figure job as an engineer. Like, it's not that, it's a pretty good, like, we'll call it backup. So I just kind of kept going with it, got the degree, and then I'm sure we'll kind of like dive into it later, but that's kind of what started to lead me down this path.
Let's talk about leaving the nest a little bit.
Okay.
This actually hasn't come up yet in this show, and it's this directly, and I'm something we should get into.
All right.
So, a Buddhist teacher said, to be fully alive, fully human, and completely awake is to be continually thrown out of the nest. To live fully is to be always in no man's land. What do you hear with that?
I mean, to find the truest form of yourself, you can't have inputs from anybody else. So in order to really be there, you got to go out on your own. You have to find what brings you life. Like, that's what I encourage the most. Is everybody like thinks it's like, cool to, like surf huge waves or ride a dirt bike or own a super fancy car. But those inputs kind of had to come from somewhere initially, right? And some of what you're interested in, like, genuinely will be driven from that. That's often what pulls you to it. But in order to really be fully immersed, you got to do your best to just push everything aside. Put all of your concerns about what other people might think or feel about you or say behind your back, whether or not they're going to support you, and try to just narrow it down to what really makes you tick. because the most beautiful thing about that is that that's going to change. And when you first, I remember when I first started that journey, I kept getting so frustrated because what I found that I enjoyed kept changing. It kept evolving, and it continues to evolve. And that growth pushes you to be even further away from everyone else and makes you more and more and more unique until you get to this point where you like don't relate to kind of anybody.
Yeah.
You know?
How'd you grapple with that loneliness? I've struggled with that for the last decade. More, 15 years.
I think I just wrote about it.
Journaled.
Yeah. I love writing. I've always been super into writing.
Mm.
And I think back then, and even now, actually, it's funny. Most of it now is just expressed through my content. A lot of times if you see something that I make or a video, something that might be more powerful, it could be about men's mental health, could be about the pursuit of your passions, your life for fulfillment. A lot of that comes from, I've got a list in my notes that's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of ideas and little notes long of like many phrases that I like hear or think about or that comes to mind. And that's often now where I get that out. And that started with journaling and just allowing myself to open up creatively in that sense. And it started to kind of just stem once I finished engineering school, because the biggest problem with what I see with young men in particular and their lack of skills to survive this like lonely period in their life where they're really finding themselves is because for the first 22 to 24 years of your life, you are given a schedule. You are given a set of classes. You are given things that you should like. You're given four different sports and a map.
And like a roster of people to pick from.
Yeah, exactly. You're given all these different things.
A closet of clothing to choose from. Like,
exactly.
It's just so structured.
And then you're just kicked out into the world.
Yeah.
And you're just like, whoa, dude, like what's happening? This is cool. I don't know what I'm feeling. This is, like, I don't know what. And it's one of the most beautiful things because for the first time in your life, you're actually free. You're not worried about an assignment. You're not worried about, what so-and-so in class is saying about you. There's none of that. You might have a job and, kind of like figuring that out. But for the first time in your life, when you finish school, you are no longer tied down to that mold in the same way that you once were of go to class, do your homework, pass. Depending, everyone has different standards. And that is like the sickest time in your life, because if you can grab that time by the balls and just go, all right, I'm going to try as many different things as possible and figure out what makes me tick. This is the first time in my life where I'm actually free. I don't have to tailor to some bullshit professor's agenda with my essay and suck up to. I just want to figure out what I like, and I'm going to go for it. And then you just start trying a million different things. Doesn't matter what it is. Surfing, writing, scuba diving, just the pursuit of knowledge. Like, it could be anything. And you can just try it. You can watch a video on it, get inspired. You discover David Goggins, and it changes the trajectory of your life because now you understand how far somebody can go.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to question it. And then you start to feel more and you go, whoa, like maybe I wasn't meant to be this engineer. Yeah, sure, I'm really good at it. But maybe engineering is really just like a license to problem solve, where you're given this skill set of, okay, like you're given a set of problems and you're pretty fucking good at solving them. You've been doing it for 20-something years at that point. But then how does that extend into who you are? And like, how does that influence where you're going to go? And the most common question I get is like, oh, well, when are you going to start using your engineering degree? And I'm like, I use it every day, right? It's a very, very useful degree to have because I look at things and to a fault sometimes still, I'm like, oh, I wonder how I can solve this problem, You can't solve a lot of like spiritual issues that way. But what you start to do is when you're looking at these big issues that you have in your life, and it's like you have this massive cheat sheet that you got to write for it also, you start pulling different formulas from it and just kind of throwing stuff and see like what kind of starts to solve it. And then eventually you start to kind of catch on to little patterns and start to write more and feel more and try more things. And it really forms you into this person that kind of you're meant to become if you let it. But you have to take that first step of like, I want to find what I enjoy and just see what happens.
Mhm.
Because you can't control it.
I wonder what the advice should be for the guy who's 22, 23, like exactly who we just described, but
Yeah.
maybe not that motivated, not that curious. And to them, it's like, why would I like go out and try a bunch of shit if it's just going to hurt? Or why should I go talk to a bunch of girls if they're just going to reject me? Or why should I go to the gym if like I'm not going to lose this weight? Or why should I try to go find my own apartment if like my parents' house is like they're never even home and their house is sweet? Because we all know those guys.
Yeah. I don't know if I necessarily see anything wrong with that if they're aware of and acknowledge that, hey, like you could do this, this, and this. But some people just don't want to because of like the level of work involved.
They're good.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know? But the people who want to, I feel like will kind of naturally start. They'll see something, you know, especially nowadays. There's so much content out there. You'd be scrolling your feed. Doesn't matter how lazy you are, how whatever. Like at some point, something is going to make you stop and go, huh. And you keep going, and you keep going. And then maybe a couple days later, something else makes you stop. You're all, And you start to get a little curious. You put the phone down and you go and you like look somebody up. And you know, that same person that you saw, you're like, oh, who is this guy? You're like, well, that's a fascinating story. And you become more curious. But I also think that maybe to that same effect, a lot of curiosity is killed by academia in the way that it's pushed, where you're just kind of, do the exam. Good luck. See ya.
Yeah.
Here's 50% of your grade. I'll see you never. I didn't have, granted, this is my fault, but I didn't have a single relationship with any of my professors in college and at UC Irvine because the class sizes were like 300. I would go to office hours. There's still 50 people there. And I'm like, I don't really want to be here anyway. You know, I just want to go surfing.
Yeah.
So then I would like leave.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. That's also a really fascinating question. I can't necessarily say I have like a very strong answer for it.
Something that scares the shit out of me to the point where like I started this podcast around it is you've got a lot, millions and millions and millions of young men in the United States right now who are at this very impressionable age.
Mm-hmm.
They're very lost. They have no resources, no really identity yet. They're 21, 22, 23, and they can go in any direction. And big tech companies, big politicians, podcasters like me and many others, you name it. Everyone's basically fighting to get this guy's attention and push him in a certain direction because he can then go in that way for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Some things that I stand against now that those men are really receiving, and they're very tempting to them, are very right-wing political views, a lot of Andrew Tate type content, which I'm very against. This is how Donald Trump won the recent election. We don't need to talk politics here. It was like targeting the angry, lost white dude who's in his early 20s who can vote, but like doesn't know much about anything. Porn.
Yeah.
A hidden message through porn is, why should you go out and feel the pain of getting rejected by a woman and probably not sleeping with her when you could just stay home and have access to all this great stuff right here?
Yeah.
Those are a few examples. And those things really scare me because if you play them out over this guy's 20s and 30s and beyond, like think about the type of life that he's going to have. Now, is it bad? Is it wrong? Not necessarily. They're just viewpoints that I just take a stance against, and so here we are.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with your content and your work and your mission. What type of messages do you want to spread to the 21, 22, 23-year-old guy, super impressionable, has no foundation, no assets, no resources, all the life ahead of him? He can go in any direction. What do you want him to hear? What do you want him to go look at? What do you want him to go do?
Lean into what you like.
He has no idea what he likes. Just lean into everything.
Just try something.
Try something.
One thing. All it takes is one thing.
Yeah.
And just try something until you find something that you like. And it's pretty easy. And I wish, one thing for me that I see with gym culture, everyone naturally is that's probably the first thing they're going to go to, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Being healthy and active. But Dude, for me, there's something about being stuck under the flash and lights as a means to find your thing that just doesn't make sense.
Gym culture took a very interesting turn in content in the last few years. Very dark, very like get over her.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's always a thing. It's kind of like a canon event for dudes, right? Like you break up with your girl, you get super jacked, and then get somebody who's like more beautiful and more better for you, and then breaks your heart and you do it again.
Yeah.
And, it's part of your growth, And whether or not you repeat that cycle is up to you. But, it's like with that, there's all like the steroid drug use, and I just don't, for me as like an outdoor enthusiast, I see its place and it has a very powerful place in my life. Do not get me wrong. But I think a lot of that is just kind of like a crock of shit. You don't need to take steroids to be jacked to like get the girl. Like I think there's just so much with that gym culture that you become so obsessed with your own like personal body image that kind of like nerfs anything else you might be that you could get invested into mentally, physically, financially. And I think I hope that 21, 22, 23-year-old kid sees that and then at some point comes across my content, what I do, and goes like, oh, this guy does both. But like, look at where all these different little hobbies that this guy has taken him in the sense of he's just gotten to do like a lot. There's just so much more exploring to be had. And there's something to be said about the feeling that you get when you're out on a hike and you see the colors of the leaves and the trees and the silence and you hear the birds, and there's something so just natural, for lack of a better term, about that is going to be so much more powerful than anything you will ever experience in the gym, ever. Nothing can touch that. It's like, okay, cool. Here, the dark, cool, everything's black, aesthetic gym. Like, that's cool. I respect and appreciate that, and I love that that's people's thing. But I'm like, dude, like, I wonder what would happen if this person got into something else. Like, I wonder what else they might be. What for me, I'm just always curious, like, what other hobbies they might pick up after. Because at some point, like, you're gonna get hurt in the gym, or gym's gonna go a little boring, and you're gonna be kind of like forced to look at something else or try something else. Could be walking, could be running, could just be something outside. But I think my biggest encouragement was just like, just go outside and just start doing something, anything.
Yeah.
I've become a huge fan this year of all the work that like Nick Bear and his team are doing.
Yeah.
Like taking these just like fucking jacked gym bro monsters. This is what they look like on the outside.
Yeah.
Bringing them under their wing and turning them into hybrid athletes. That's their thing. So now these guys are Ironmen, and it's like seeing them on long runs, long bike rides, long swims, interesting hikes, rocking like crazy.
Yeah.
And they're fucking yoked. Like that's the opposite look that what you would expect for guys like that. I think it's a cool, and I've always stemmed from the action sports and outdoors world. Like, of course, I lift a couple days a week, always have.
Yeah, for sure. It's good for you.
You need to, but I'll always default to being outside.
Yeah.
I love seeing it go in that direction.
Yeah.
Which is great. So, Thoreau, a very famous author from history.
Yeah.
This is a very famous quote of his, which is, "The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation." What do you think quiet desperation looks like in modern men?
I think it's changing yourself so that you're seen in better light from other people before you change yourself to see what you're actually capable of.
Ooh. External validation.
Yeah, that external validation is that quiet, like, oh, like,
if they only could see me like this.
Yeah, like if they're, or if, somebody compliments you on your physique or something, and then you keep going, which is good. Like that's, it shows that you're doing something, but it can be very easy to like go down that path and then just like with anything and kind of get like too invested in that, where you're only kind of going where you start to go to the gym because you're like, oh, I can't miss a day because, I can't let people think that I'm going to slip, versus I won't miss a day because I made that commitment to myself, because that's valuable to me. And they both have their own inherent value, but I think the one that's built on someone else's approval will just like, it's just never going to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
And then, but with yourself, it's totally different.
Yeah. Kelly Slater said in an interview recently,
I saw it recently. I don't know how recent it was, but he shared, and it was like shocking to everyone, that when he works out, when he trains, he only goes to like 60, 70% of his ability. I was like, what? Like, you don't go to failure? You don't like lift as hard as you can? You don't run as far as you can? Like, like opposite of what all of sports and science always tell you in history is like, you go till fucking failure, till your feet are bleeding.
Yeah.
He was like, well, yeah, because if I do that, then I'm too sore the next day to get up and do it again. So I save my 110% for when it matters, which is when I'm competing. Otherwise, I go to 70% and I enjoy it. And I'm out there every single day.
Yeah.
All the time.
Exactly.
Do you follow the same philosophy?
Yeah, I think so. Your just ceiling gets raised. The more fit you are, the stronger you are. Your ceiling goes up and up and up and up as far as you want to go. It's like,
was your 40% last year?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, last week I ran 20 something miles in a week, which was substantially more than anything I would have done the year before, But at peak week this year when I was training for the ultra, I was running 60 miles a week or something. So you're seeing, like, for me, I'm just like, whatever. It doesn't, I can run 6 miles now and I don't even think about it. Whereas before, 6 miles, I'm like, dude, that's pretty far. It is really far, to be honest, still, I'm like, that's quite the distance. But then that will eventually become your 70%. For me, I think about surfing. Surfing doesn't count as a workout for me most of the time. There's a certain level of intensity that the waves need to bring in order for me to be like, okay, like I
actually feel.
Yeah, it's where I'm like, actually feel like I'm getting pushed.
So will you often go work out and then still surf later that day?
Yeah, like ideally, a day like today is a little bit more challenging. I'll probably try and hit the gym, like, on my way home, depending on how much time that I might have. But yeah, if, there's only so much time in the day, so I can't necessarily fit in like an insane amount of workouts. But like, yeah, usually I'll surf early in the morning or I'll run, and then I lift some point during the day, during a break from when I'm like editing or something. But I'm also, you cannot keep me inside. I think that's almost a problem that I have, to where it's really hard for me to sit inside. And I'm always like, whatever. This work can wait. I'm going to go outside and go for a run. It's sunny out,
Yeah. The California curse.
Yeah. I'm like, this sun, it's too nice. I just want to go outside. So a lot of my life is kind of like reeling myself in on that, which is great. It's good. I think it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
But yeah. I also enjoy like working out and lifting. And
what got you into ultra running?
Dude, it just looked hard. I started following this guy, Max, Joe Leaf. He won the Moab 240, I think 2 years ago. It's a 240-mile foot race through Moab, Utah. I didn't run, maybe like once a month or something. I don't know. I didn't even have a decent pair of shoes. And his TikTok started coming up. And it'd be like, day 987 of running at least a mile every day until I'm too sick or too tired, whatever. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And then, some days it'd be like, wait, did he just say 20 miles? Twice? He'd run like an insane amount. And I'm all, what the hell is this? I didn't even know ultra running existed. And then I started doing some more research on him. I'm like, well, that's pretty crazy. And at that same time, I just saw this post where he's like, Max Shaleef wins the Moab 240. I was all, what the hell is that? And then I go and I look and I'm like, oh my gosh, bro, this guy ran for 2.5 days straight. That's unreal. I was like, that sounds really hard. Like, that's got to be one of the hardest things that a human could ever do. One of the most incredible feats ever is to win that race. It beats anything else, I think. It's a world title, basically. And I was like, that sounds kind of cool. What are the other races? I don't think I should run 240 miles. It sounds a little bit insane for where I'm at right now. Maybe 100 sounds, I don't know, 100 miles sounds cool. Sounds really hard, running for at least 24 hours straight. Mm-hmm. And then I remember
you went 0 to 100, literally.
Yeah. Well, I just remember what the thing with me is sometimes when I'm looking at stuff and I'm like, that sounds really hard, and I catch myself like, I don't want to do that. I catch it and I go, yeah, all right, yeah, that's what we're doing.
We have to,
because I felt it. I was like, well, I don't want to do that because it's hard and it's a lot of work and I got to learn all new stuff, and like, that's a big undertaking. And then I realized, dude, try it, whatever. Put in the work. Like, you're looking for something to kind of like lock you down and get you more fit. And for me, my whole life is built around finding ways to go to places in your head that you can't fabricate. You can't fabricate what it feels like to have 40-foot waves crashing all around you, paddling up from the beach at Nazaré after you've been paddling for 45 minutes. Your heart rate's at 195. You feel like if another wave is going to break on your head, that you could actually drown. Like you're starting to get these like in and out feelings, and everything's just, you're on the brink of death. And that's not super healthy. And I was trying to think of, find other ways to get to a place in your mind where you are just so invested in what you're doing and you're feeling so many different things, and everything about your existence is just right now and right in this moment. And you're forced to grow and push through all of these different feelings. You might have the feeling that you want to quit, or that you're done, or that you want to quit big wave surfing because like, why are you risking your life out here? And I wanted to find that. And something about running for 24 hours straight just sounded fun, because I was like, dude, I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
No question. Because like, and then I started reading, it's like a lot of people don't finish. I'm really confident that I could finish if I trained and put in the work. But like, dude, if I don't, that means I found where I broke. I found where everything shit the bed and my body failed. Or my mind did. And I know for damn sure it wasn't going to be my mind, because I was going to go until I could not go any further.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, dude, what a sick experience. I encourage anybody to go and push themselves to that limit. Obviously, put in the training, don't try and paddle out of Nazaré from the beach on a 40-foot day. You're going to die. Like, that's just part of it. But like, to the untrained person. But I encourage you to go and like, do this thing. Even a marathon can do it for most people, or a half marathon or whatever. Like there's different levels for anyone, and it could even be a 5K. And you go to this place where you're so low and your brain wants to quit so bad. And then you just tell yourself, nah, I'm not doing that. And you keep going, you come on the other side, you're like, whoa, that was cool. Like I like that, A lot of times after those big races, you'll hear like, oh, I'm never doing that again. And 30 minutes later, they're like, no, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
I would go back,
So how'd you do in the actual race?
I made it 52.75 miles, okay. I think, 53 or something.
Yeah.
And my body like fully shut down. I was reaching the time cutoff. Essentially what happened is I did all the training, didn't really miss any days, only for a couple like minor injuries that I got throughout the training thing. I would take like a day off and kind of stack miles somewhere else. And got to the actual race day. I was under an insane amount of stress with myself and my business. I had no money left, again, for however many times that I had experienced that. And I was there, just all this stress. And then I woke up that morning with like really gnarly altitude sickness, something that I'd never struggled with before. I'm a big snowboarder, love doing all that stuff. And I woke up.
Where was the run, by the way?
It was in Big Bear.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it was a run there.
Yeah, it was sick. Beautiful place to run. Yeah. And I just remember I woke up and immediately felt it and was like, oh, this isn't good. And then I just kept telling myself it's not real. Whatever you're feeling, this isn't real. You sign up for this race, you're here. Mom's here, she's helping you out. Got some people, like some friends up here to kind of run with you and pace you. Like I wasn't not going to step on the starting line no matter what anyway, even if I was by myself. But I was like, all right, this is going to be even harder than you thought. Significantly harder than you thought, because you're already sick. I couldn't eat. I was already shitting my pants, which with ultra running, you're running for so long, you are having to consume food the whole time. You're consuming food or gels or sugar, whatever you can get down and keep down. And I couldn't eat anything. And I was already shitting my brains out, which is horrible. And I couldn't stay on top of my hydration. There's just everything was working against me. And I'd never been in that situation either. So I didn't know what to do. I was basically going into it blind. As much training as I did to get familiar, as many long runs as I did to get familiar with gels and how I might feel. And I got to the starting line. I was like, all right, I'm going to go until I drop. Either I finish or they pull me off the course. Mm-hmm. And because there is a line that you will walk with, like going to the emergency room and actually flirting with death and that same thing. So I'm trying to find that line where like you could go there, and then you kind of like you found it, but you don't need to go. I've already done that. I've already found what that feels like. And yeah, I made it the first 30. The first like hour or two felt okay. Adrenaline, everything's going good. A couple hours in, I'm like, dude, my stomach hurts. Everything kind of starts to hurt. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours in, I kind of got around like the 32-mile mark. And then I just came in, and that was the first time I'd seen my crew. And I still couldn't eat anything. And I just kept lying to them and told them that I was fine. I was like, yeah, that's whatever. You guys don't need to worry about anything. I'm good, I'll just like fake it till you make it, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm good. And then it took me more than 8 hours to go to the next 20 miles. And at that point, like, I was moving at a shuffle where I was just for 7 of those 8 hours, I was in the worst condition I've ever been in mentally and physically, where I couldn't keep anything down. I was barely able to move forward. I'd get to an aid station and I would try to eat something and I couldn't. I would try to drink some soup and I could barely get that down. I drank maybe like a tiny flask of water over that, 8 hours. My body was just like depleting itself of everything. So many fluids and I just looked horrible basically. And I just remember shuffling, and the last like 4-mile section between an aid station and then the big aid station where my crew was going to be at again, it took me, I don't even know how long. I don't remember how long. I got lost like 3 times. I just was trying to get to the top of this mountain and I couldn't find the top basically. And I got in and the medical staff, I was like kind of getting checked. They're like kind of checking me out. And I was just like, oh, like, what do you think? They're all, when was the last time you ate? I didn't want to tell them. They're like, when was the last time you ate? And I was like, oh, here. And they're like, what the fuck? And, they're like, what about water? I'm like, yeah, honestly, dude, like, I can't keep anything down. I feel horrible. It feels like my head's going to explode. I've had a headache since the race started. And they were like, hey, like, there's this disease called, I'm not exactly sure, but it's a thing called rhabdo where pretty much everything just like shuts down. And I think your kidneys start to fail. And they're like, that's where you're at. If you keep going, you're going to find it and you could die out on the trail. That's where it's, like, you're not going any further. And they pretty much just pulled me off. It was pretty anticlimactic, but it was just like this war scene where it was like 50-mile-per-hour winds, tents are getting blown everywhere. There's this tiny little fire, and everyone's just sitting, shivering. All these people are vomiting. It's crazy. You're just like, what the hell is happening? I'm sure that didn't help whatever I was feeling. And they were just like, yeah, dude, like you're done. And I like really didn't want to give that up. I'm not glad that I did, but it's better that I did because I didn't, go to the emergency room and spend 10 days in the ICU like some people do.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I afterwards, it's still a really hard pill for me to swallow. But afterwards, I was like, you know what? Like, if I can go 17 hours of the worst suffering you could ever imagine without any real like food or plan or water or whatever, like, dude, imagine how far I could go if I felt good. Yeah. So yeah.
What is something that those who are into endurance sports, ultra running, are probably all thinking, but no one's really saying out loud about it, good or bad?
That's probably not good for you. Ultra running is probably not good for you in the long term. I can't see it. I can't see regularly running for 72 hours straight or something in like one of those crazy races being like good for your health, like long term.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, dude,
we're doing it anyway.
If you like it, fuck it. Just do it. It's your experience. If you enjoy that experience and do it. Who gives a fuck what anybody says?
Yeah.
I find that fast. There's a guy, Andy Glaze. He's been running 100 miles a week for 300 something weeks. And on the 300th week, he ran 300 miles. And he wakes up and he still runs. His threshold just got raised,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's probably not good for you. No, I don't think anybody would argue that it's great for you. Any ultra runner is probably going to be like, yeah, not good for your health, right? But, dude, what's the point of living a life if you don't get to experience anything?
Yeah. You can do it again?
Yeah, for sure. I'm not, I'm like a down but never out kind of person. So
sure.
I'll go back. Maybe I doubt I'll go back this year just because of the time commitment that it takes to commit to do a race like that. As far as like preparation and running and, if you're doing like 14 hours a week at peak weeks, it's just an insane commitment. It's a full-time job. But I think once I get another year under my belt, I'll go back and do it. But I also couldn't, I could see myself doing it again this year. But I will go back. I will do more ultras, like 50Ks. I'll definitely do a 50. If I don't do the 100 this year, I'll do like 100K, 100 miles. I'll do 100 kilometers, which is like 60 miles or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I'll do something like that because I do enjoy it. I think it's cool. I think it's really fun.
What's your next big feat in general?
I haven't really lined that up because for me, for the last 3 years since I left my job as a mechanical engineer, I've been trying to make this dream of surfing the biggest waves in the world like kind of my job or my life for a while. And what I've come to realize is it isn't serving me in the way that obviously I would love it to or envision it. And it's not, and it also doesn't feel like that's what I want anymore.
Yeah.
So what I've realized is I'm trying to almost take a step back from doing all of these insane feats so that I can find like what I really love to pursue and enjoy and not let it entirely consume me as a means to learn more about myself and what I want to do and what I really love. Also because the big wave surfing is really expensive. Everything about it, everything's $2,000, you know? You you go to Nazaré, like I just broke my board, it's like there's another $1,500. You want to get into tow. If I wanted to go and get into tow surfing and do it cheap, I'd still have to spend $10,000 just to like get in the water. It's not even do it, you know, because then you have to have a team, you have to have all this other, so many stuff. So my thing now is like, okay, how do I grow myself as a person and as a creative and we'll call it an entrepreneur, so that I can facilitate me getting back to going and doing stuff like that, where I'm not like, oh my gosh, like I want to get this wave so I can get a sponsor or so I can do this. It's like I just love it, and I want to be able to do that and facilitate that without having to fulfill somebody else's like agenda, just because I just want to do it, you know? So I'm on this different path now where I'm purposely not taking on like these really hard feats for that reason, so that I can give myself the space to focus in and like actually be able to put food on my table and, you know, afford to like live in my own apartment and like have these like financial goals that I've never really set, because I'm just like, oh, like let's just fucking take over the world and then do these, you know, push yourself to the limit. But like you can't do that if you can't buy groceries. And I'm honestly sick of getting to Sprouts and going like, oh shit, dude, like I can't buy fucking eggs today, you know? Yep. Because of all this, because I was putting all these eggs into that surfing basket and the big wave thing, and I could make it work, and I could continue that cycle of like, yeah, like I could make some money and then go and spend it and then make some money. It's like, I don't want that. Like I want to be able to have this incredible life for myself and be able to provide for me and like my future wife and kids and my parents and be able to kind of serve way more than just my own personal desires. I feel like a lot of men will go through something like that at some point in their life, where they start to be less selfish in the sense of like, oh, like I want to get back to serving my people, right? Like you want to get back and serve as a leader and as a positive role model and be able to do more than just show what's possible for you. It's like, what could you do if you were able to facilitate all of this stuff and support your family and have like this, have an incredible and powerful life that's also fulfilling, you know? So I'm just trying something different. And for me, that's actually going the opposite direction and purposely not doing anything.
Yep.
Yeah, which is not something I thought I would be saying.
Sure. So as we start to wrap, I always like to close with the same question. Every guest gets it. What do you think it means to be a man nowadays?
To be a man and to be a successful man, it's to be able to look your challenges in the eyes and say, it might take a while, but I'll get over this and I'll get over you. And I'll be ready for the next one. So it's your ability to manage those challenges that you are going to face. And I think that is maybe the most simple way to sum that up. Because in order to do that, you have to be able to manage your own emotions. You have to be able to manage yourself under pressure. So in life-threatening situations, in stressful business situations, in careers, with your kids or wife, whatever it might be, you have to be able to manage most things and also accept that you're probably going to still fuck up pretty bad, but you'll still be able to overcome those challenges. Notice that you still keep getting chances. You keep failing, but you still keep getting chances. That's not a coincidence. That is absolutely not a coincidence.
I never thought about that. I love that.
Every day you wake up, you royally fuck up. You wake up the next day, you're going to get more chances. And if you live by that and you go, hey, like, all right, I'm doing my best. I'm putting my best foot forward. I'm going to keep getting more chances. And that's okay.
I love it, dude. What's the biggest question on your mind these days?
For me, it's what's it going to take to find the next best version of myself? Like, what road am I going to have to travel down in order to find the next best version of Tanner, to where they're maybe a little bit more stable in what they're doing and they're a little bit more level-headed and less erratic with their decision-making and more confident in themselves and their ability to like make money and survive, which I think is something that a lot of people can relate to. So for me, it's like, okay, what am I missing that's going to take me to that next level? And like, I'm willing to do what it takes to find that. No matter how long or how far I need to go, you know?
Yeah.
And I think this time it doesn't have anything to do with physical endeavors. It's quite the opposite.
If you could leave a few words for your 80-year-old self, what would you say?
I hope you can look back and laugh. I hope that you can look back at who I am now and go, damn, I'm glad I got to feel that. I'm so glad I made those mistakes. I am fortunate to have felt those feelings. Because if you strip everything else away, money, fame, relationships, all you're left with is feelings. And it's like, I'm glad you were still grateful for that.
Yep. Love it, dude.
Thank you
for coming on. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was sick. I appreciate it.